probably the wrong word, you want to renew it.
Renew it.
And rather than put you through the whole presentation again, although I know I asked you to put the materials in case people want to see it. I've driven by the house. I don't see anything externally that presents a different set of facts than were presented when we first heard this over a year ago. And I'll ask you to represent one way or the other. Are there any differences in those facts? Neighborhood is unchanged as far as you're aware. Okay. Go as far as you want in the presentation. But I mean, normally we do renew these unless there's a reason not to.
There's really no change. If you would like to go through it again, the house design hasn't really changed. The variances that we were requesting were for relief from story limitation. It was because it has a basement space that exceeds the story. It's not visible from the street, and it's not really visible from the rear yard. There wasn't really a significant visual impact to anybody when we looked at it originally. And then the other change that we made, we were asking for a coverage increase, a slight coverage increase, but we did eliminate other unused coverage. There was a concrete foundation that was left from an outbuilding that's not there anymore. And we were reducing the plan by taking the garage entrance to the side of the building, reduced a lot of impervious surface that isn't being counted as coverage, which is coverage. So we felt that there was a net benefit, and there's a lot of planting that was proposed as well.
Okay. I don't know what the outcome would have been if we consider this as a first-time application, but we considered this long and hard a year and a half ago, or maybe a little more. And so my inclination is to go ahead and approve the request for a renewal of the variance. Do I have any comments from the board members?
I agree. I agree with you.
Okay. All right, then I'll move the granting of this application. Do I have a second?
Yeah.
Vote from the left. Thomas?
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Thank you. May they all be that easy, but we'll see. Next up is Joseph Clark.
Good evening. We've already been before the planning board in this thing, and basically what we're requesting, I think we're exceeding the floor area ratio, if I'm correct on that.
Right.
Basically, this is an existing enclosed porch. You can see it's all screened in and whatever. And what we'd like to do is just, it's in a kind of state of disrepair as far as the screens and the lattice and all this other stuff here. And what we want to do is replace this basically with screens and glass so that, the winter, like we're coming in now, we could just close the glass because there is an indoor-outdoor rug in there. There's some furniture because the porch is used, basically 3 seasons. And it's just what we've done in the past here. We put plastic up to protect and stuff. And it's really an eyesore to the neighbors. So we do have to fix this here. We purchased this house not that long ago on a foreclosure. You saw the house before. You appreciate how much we cleaned up the yard. It was literally trees growing over the house. We've really done a lot to improve it for our neighbors and stuff. And we just want to, this is the last piece of the puzzle. And we just want to be able to put in the glass here so that, we can protect what's on the porch without having to shrink wrap everything and shrink wrap the porch and whatever. So that's really what we're asking to do. The planning board had no problem with it already. It's already been passed, and it has to come before you guys because I guess because once we put the glass on it, it exceeds this ratio. Sorry, I'm not familiar with it. Not that
It's a little more dense than I think the drafters intended, but you're about 20% over now, and you're asking for another 10% on the FAR calculation. Would you describe a little better what you want to do with the top half and the bottom half?
Basically, this will just be a fixed glass on the bottom here, that the lattice will disappear and everything. And then up here, there'll be windows that we think we're we're not 100% sure whether you're not going to be able to totally remove them or not, but we're trying to, it depends on the manufacturer. And we want to be able to actually just take the glass out in the summer, so it's just a screen porch, and store the glass under the porch, and then, you know, in the late fall, when it starts turning cold, just pop the windows back in to protect it for the winter.
So in the summer, the top part will look pretty much like what
Pretty
you
much
have
like
there.
it is, yeah. Mhm.
Okay. And the picture in the center, what is that?
This was something we actually pulled off the internet, just to try and give a feel what it would look like. You know, the windows would be like this, and there's a glass panel on here. It's just something we pulled off just to help you visualize what we're talking about there. But, you know, other than that, there's really no impact. We're not changing the footprint. We're not, this porch is there. Strictly a matter of taking the screens and putting in screens and glass.
Mr. Chairman?
Yep.
I was at the site and I looked at it, and I mean, I concur. I think that, I mean, number one, it does need some work, what is there, and I think that replacing this will only benefit the rest of the neighborhood. That was my observation and my belief.
Okay, thank you.
And actually, the only person close to this is over here next to us. Steve, he's sitting right here. He has no issue with it.
Is that right, Steve?
To be honest, the neighborhood looks much better because it was run down. It was overgrown, the trees was covering the house, and it looked like a slum place almost.
Yeah, I noticed the planting in the back looked pretty good, so
It was pretty bad.
bring the same attention to this, should we grant it, okay?
Yeah, the cats who came over from the East Garden Estate and literally wiped out the whole backyard. It just literally took over, killed every shrub, tree that was there. It was nothing but vines.
Okay.
So that's why
Everybody, if you're at the back of the house facing further back,
Mhm.
there are porches all along the left side. There are 6 or 7 houses that have similar porches.
Right.
At the moment, none of those are enclosed. So the only issue, I think, with this entire application is whether or not you're starting a trend.
Well, I think this would stand, you know, on its own merits. If someone wanted to do that, they'd have to come before you as well and meet the required setbacks and you know, whatever there.
The only real problem is if we do it for you, then it's kind of hard to distinguish the other 6 or 7 who are in the neighborhood. Balancing that, I think, is the fact that this will be an improvement. Theirs might be too, but when I visited the property and had a nice chat with your in-laws, that was the only thing that occurred to me. Any other comments from the board? I know others of you have been out there as well.
I concur with comments of both of you, so.
Okay. Given that, I'll move to approve the application. And do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, let's vote from the right. John?
I vote to approve.
Yes.
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 Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, next up is the Barth application, Beechwood Road.
You know, just before we go ahead, did you have the notice that you had, if I could have that?
Yep.
The proof of notice, yeah, thank you. That, yep,
The mailing.
the mailing, sorry.
You know, I noticed things that came around in this package. A lot of the mailings, I think maybe the mailing were included, is that?
Sometimes they,
It's not ran out.
no, it's not right, it's not. But yeah, they do.
I thought that was helpful.
Yes, right.
Okay.
Back to you.
Bring this table over to you if you'd like.
That's all, thank you.
Good evening, Stephen Bassini, the architect for Edmund Allison Barth at 11 Beechwood Road. We're before you now for a variance, which there was 2 I have listed in the letter, the 5 points letter. I realized that I had written that assuming that the front yard will be a variance requirement because it's over what's currently now it's pre-existing nonconformity. Even though we're not adding to it, we see the denial of the building department, they addressed it, said it is not a variance required. So in the letter, it does say 2 variances, but in the notice to the neighbors, it's only the 1 for the coverage. We're here before you to seek variance for coverage, 8% coverage variance in an R20 zone. This is a neighborhood in Beechwood that consists mainly of half-acre lots. They take 1,000 square feet. You'll see there's Beechwood, there's the lot. These are all basically the same configuration, the same size. These may be narrower off of Osceola, but they're deeper, so they're all basically the same size. And you can see from the aerial view, they're all essentially the same. That's the same layout of the house. There's some larger than other. Some back here with the pool, these over here with the pools. But essentially, if you look at the GIS maps, they're all essentially the same size and the same coverage. The proposal is to repair this existing dilapidated deck. That's about 239 square feet. There's stringer, there's treads that are broken here, there's joist here, decking here that's been repaired. And as you go out there, you may have seen it, I don't know if anyone out, or I've been out a few times. These piers are not exactly straight anymore, and so they really want to rebuild this. The property itself slopes down from here to here, if you can see on the survey as well. It slopes to the backyard from the house 6 foot. Over 60 feet, so it's basically a 1-on-10 pitch, and over here it's about 8 feet in less distance, so about 115, 120 pitch going that way. There's really not a lot of flat area in the backyard to use for entertaining or for purposes like that, so right now the deck is what they utilize. It's a split-level ranch, so there's a family room off of the back here, which walks out of a slightly door to grass right now, which gets muddy, and there's a little makeshift wall there.
That's where the patio is.
That's where the patio would go, right? So the proposal really was, they have 3 small children. The proposal was to erect a deck twice the size of that. They have a bay window here that is in a playroom. The deck would extend this way. The deck, this is the existing deck location here. The deck would extend this way another 230 square feet. The bay window would become a sliding door out of the children's playroom so that they can go outside and in the semi-enclosed area. They put a little gate across here, and the children can go outside of the deck, get some fresh air without the parents wandering around the slope.
And the stairs come straight out instead of to the side, is that right?
Stairs come actually out here, and I go this way, and then go this way. There's a set of stairs coming up with a single landing, 2 sets of stairs.
Okay.
Going this way, the need was sort of the length of the house is very long. At this area over here, it's the garage, then it becomes a mudroom, play area here, kitchen, dining room, and these are the bedrooms back in here. So we really wanted to put a set of stairs coming here, so you don't have to come across, stretch across here and come back up to the deck, or vice versa if you're out there and need to go to the garage, to have to go that distance. Plus, I believe it has a nice feature to the house. But that was really the reason, to be able to put a table on here and a barbecue, and also, you'll see here they have a little playhouse, so they want the children really to play on that. The patio was to be able to use this family room that they have and not tread mud in and out, and also have adult entertainment, and again, create another flat area in a relatively steep property in the back. So the patio and the deck addition puts the coverage over the allowable by 260 square feet. It is currently below over 300 square feet. I believe that as you look around the property here, this is a view from the deck to the backyard. These are mature evergreens. There's a beautiful screen back in here. You'll see it on the survey if you've been out there. There's nobody back there that can view this. The side of the house here, you see there's another mature canopy of evergreens here that runs back to about, it runs to about here, so those provide a nice screen. And the only visible property is this one downhill, which, referring to character of the neighborhood, has a patio as a deck, essentially the size of what we're proposing down there now. You'll see it down there, down the hill. And that one is far enough away down the hill that I don't believe it will be a negative impact to them either. So I don't believe it really adds any negative impact to the neighborhood, especially in the backyard, not visible to anyone except for that neighbor who has a similar feature. And we did have a larger deck proposed. Part of this chamfer here was to save this nice tree they have here. We're going to plan on doing a little deck pier right here, finding the area where there's no roof and put just one single pier in that area. That predicated this chamfer here. I had it a little farther out, and I had these not chamfered either. When I ran the calculations, it was coming up to about 10%. I remember in past presentations here, 10% is some sort of a threshold, and I really wanted to get it down below that. I felt it was more palatable, something below. So I pulled this back in 2 feet, and I chamfered these corners. It was about 98%, so I reduced it down to make sure it was 8%. So that is the variance we're requesting. And knowing full well that there's really not much else they can do with this property in the back because of the slopes. this is what they're buying.
Okay, the patio would be flat on land, right?
It would be flat on land with, and this area here, because of the way the property slopes, it would be a small retaining wall right here that's holding up the patio.
Okay, just because of the angle at
Because
which
the
the
angle,
land
it's
goes.
not elevated at all, it's just actually step down, there's about a 6-inch step down from the front door, and then the patio, so it's at grade.
But the deck, which you're expanding, would still be at the same level it's at now?
It is at the same level, and it doesn't get any higher, because that is the highest point, and then as it's going this way, the property slopes up, so it actually gets lower as it goes there.
But it's a flat deck, obviously.
It's flat deck, it's not tiered, and it's not any higher than it is now.
Okay. And the other thing I noticed standing in the back, looking both right and left, is that there are decks on the back of every house. So they may not be as large as what you're anticipating, but it is a common feature in that neighborhood, so it's not inconsistent. Any comments or questions from board members?
Well, just a question about the patio will require a retaining wall, as you said, right?
A small retaining, it actually only really requires about a 12 to 16-inch retaining
Right.
wall.
Could you not, you could plant grass there, you said say it's muddy, and I was there, but there's some mud. But in theory, you could put the retaining wall, have it totally level, and put some steps, plant grass, and have some, stones, steps, to going into the basement there.
In
You don't
lieu of
really.
patio?
Yeah, instead of the patio.
It's also, yes, it's also about having an area level to the ground when they are out there with the children or with other families with children, to be able to be at ground level and not go up and down stairs. They have.
No,
Yeah.
I'm talking
Oh, sorry.
about, not a pavement, but just stones in the ground instead of.
Pavers,
Hey.
I'm sorry, I'm misunderstanding, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, I'm having a little trouble with words tonight.
It's okay.
Instead of a patio, you have grass,
Right.
and then you just have slabs to walk on.
I think pavers is the right description.
Okay.
Why not that, is what he says.
Why not well, they have joints. You're talking about with joints between them, or are you talking?
No,
You're talking about stepping stones like these
Yeah.
here?
Exactly.
Well, the idea is also to entertain on that as well, to have that as an entertainment area with chairs. And when you do spacious pavers like this, you have large joints between that is not conducive with putting chairs on it. And also, this is good for stepping because you see it visually. If you try and have an area where you're supposed to be relaxing and sitting, it's also angled. It's not safe to have this as a patio. Pavers are a different story, and I have this actually as proposed to be pavers, either pavers or bluestone. And we have drainage to pick up either one. But as far as making large joints to reduce the coverage, I don't think that would work for the purposes that they're intending, which is.
So you talked about the mud. I'm simply saying if you put
Yes.
a path of stone in you level it, you have
You're right.
grass there, the grass
Yes.
grows perfectly well. You don't step on the grass that much, you just walk in on the.
You're absolutely right, and it wasn't just for access in and out of the door, it's being able to utilize the backyard from that door and
That-
entertain
that I
outside of it.
understand.
So I'm sorry, yes, it
That
was
I
double
understand.
reason. I understand what you're saying, yes,
Now, that drawing, you appear to have a line of shrubs or bushes.
correct.
Is that part of your proposal?
Absolutely it is, yes. We have
So
some,
putting that as a condition of approval would
Yes.
not bother you?
no, it would not bother us, no. In fact, we have some landscaping here. We're also talking about moving this pad, this is in air conditioning right now. I'm putting it on the side of the house, it would not affect the coverage, it would be the same exact pad, in the same, different location. But then that eliminates the noise in the summer when you're sitting in the patio and you hear that condenser kick in. So it might eliminate the need for these shrubs, but as far as buffering that wall, absolutely it can be a condition of the approval.
And that's to the east, right?
That is to the east, correct.
All right.
I'm sorry, to the west. I think that-
Yeah, it's the west, isn't it?
The other way around, yes.
It's west.
Yeah, you're right, I turned around, thank you.
Yeah, we put
We're
the elevation.
moving the air conditioning to make it louder for the neighbors.
No, they all have, actually, several of them have them on the side of the house already. It just seems to make sense.
I didn't notice the
I don't
other
know why they
houses
put
where
that
they
there
were
anyway.
located.
Okay, any other comments or questions from board members?
No, my observation was just not only is it not, there's no effect, it's consistent with the rest of the neighborhood, and it's appropriate.
Okay. Anybody in the congregation who wish to be heard? The only application you guys aren't on tonight, you don't want to say anything about it?
Would you ask Steve this? Would you ask Steve this?
Yeah. Okay, I will move the approval of the application with the condition about the shrubs being planted to the west of the proposed patio. Do I have a second? All right, we'll vote from the left. Thomas?
Yes.
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 Thank you very much. Oh,
You have to
do we get the
speak.
rest? Sorry.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, yes, okay.
Four would have been enough, but we like to do it.
Thank you very much. Have a safe drive.
Thank you,
Thank
yeah,
you.
be careful out there. Okay, Lewis is next. Let me make a couple of preliminary remarks here. There were originally, in the papers we received, 4 issues, which included encroachment into the front yard because you're doing an addition that will somewhat extend the front of the house toward the road.
Right.
And there's a shed, which is along the back of the house, right next to the fence, which is not documented and not legalized. There is a barbecue pit, which is in the wetlands. And there is a swing set, I guess I will call it, it's a little more elaborate than that, which is in the wetlands buffer. Now, those latter 2 points were originally for us to consider, at least they're referred to in the papers. But I understand that the planning board is taking both the barbecue pit and the swing set under their jurisdiction, which I think it is, because they do wetland stuff first. So we're not going to address that. Is that consistent with your understanding?
Yes.
Okay, good. Why don't you go ahead with what you have then?
So there's an existing, the house is an existing Georgian brick house. A lot that has multiple fronts. This is Broadway, and there's a right-of-way driveway, unnamed shared road. We're considering that also the front. So we're considering these 2 fronts. And the documents that are in front of you are also showing this as a front. I see that Ed referred to this as a side, which would change the setback along this line from 55 to 15. It would not affect the fact that the shed is in it.
You're well in it on that line.
I don't think it's.
It could be 5 feet, you'd be in it.
Yeah, you're right, probably not.
Yeah.
So the project is to correct some of the issues that are common from houses of this age relative to more modern houses of their scale. You know, the house was designed with servants' quarters and separate servants' quarters, kitchen that's remote from the house and formal spaces, and generally smaller bedrooms. So the things that we're doing to the house is there's an addition here that's a 2-story addition that has a deck below it that's adjacent to a living room. The 2-story portion of it is really to provide a master bathroom for the master suite. The master suite is in this portion of the house. There's a centralized stair that I can show you that limits what you can do to expand the master. It makes it hard to put in what people consider a master suite. So this addition here is providing that master bathroom, some exterior space here, and then on the ground level, it is just an open porch. The other change that we're doing is there's an existing small 1-story mudroom in this area that's being expanded as a 1-story addition that's providing a different function than the mudroom is.
But that is not,
That requires no variance.
We're going to require the variance.
thank you, John.
So on
Sorry,
the
Mr. Chairman.
No,
in terms of the items that were asked for the variance, the position of this addition on the west side of the house, in order for it to be consistent with that facade of the house, this is where we need to put it. And in fact, the reason that it was really in the setback has to do with the existing house, pre-existing, already hanging over that line. So we've set that elevation of that back slightly, just so you guys can see what we're talking about. This is the front elevation of the house. It's typical with Georgians to have a porch structure or a solarium type structure, off to one side, off to the west for the solarium function. So we're trying to mimic that, so something that really matches the house. So you have the solarium light language on the top, which is the bathroom, and then the open porch below.
Now, does that extend out beyond the current front?
No, it's set back about 2 feet, so if you can see, it's sort of hard to tell. This is the volume, that is the existing volume, and then this line here, set back, is the bathroom portion of the second floor. So it's about 2 feet back from the front.
So you're not closer to the road than you are now? You would not be closer to the road than you are now?
Yeah, and so the increase is probably, if back at this level, it's probably, I think it's about 4 feet, is the depth of that increase. And we hope that it doesn't really have any negative impacts in the neighborhood.
And again, the increase is not, it's toward the aqueduct, it is not toward the road.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
So for the shed is a shed that predates zoning code. Its position is probably typical to.
Well, be careful, because it's not, according to what we were told, I was told, it's not predating the zoning code.
Oh, it's not. I mean,
No, it's not brand new.
Right.
It's post-zoning code.
It looked like there are portions of it, there might be portions of it, but from what I saw of it, there's some evidence that, because there was a shed here that has 2 wings on it, and I think that with the existing shed, there's evidence that it's pretty old. I think it's probably, if it's not built at the same time as the building, it was very close to it. There's also evidence of a greenhouse that was along this line. Here, there's a pad that's left over, and there's actually leftover cast iron from what was the greenhouse. So I don't know. I don't know if it's important to you, but I think it was probably part of the way the property would have been developed in that period where they would have pushed out buildings to the perimeter, which is more typical for safety.
What's it being used for now?
It's being used for additional storage. The house has only a 1-car garage that's very narrow. And I think the goal is that any garden and that kind of equipment would be associated out there so that they can keep this relatively large garage.
Tell me what you're putting on the, plan to put on the south side of the house toward Madison Road?
This side.
Yeah, you mentioned there's gonna be a mud loop or something like that.
Yes, so on the south side, there's basically a mudroom and sort of an extension to the kitchen that provides TV space to the kitchen. So we can look at it in plan that makes more sense, but that's what's shown here. It's a 1-story addition. Similarly, now there's a 1-story addition that has just mudroom function. So what is being added now is a sort of breakfast room area with TV function and then a mudroom. So the existing footprint in this area is about this big. The proposed footprint is slightly larger there.
Why can't the function of your shed be included in whatever you're doing back there?
I think it's just Boston work and more construction. I think they're trying to not extend this anymore. We are below coverage and below FAR right now, so you understand this. But we've been through a few rounds of crossing on this and been trying to shrink things to the maximum amount. We had looked at a garage addition that would have replaced the shed used with our garage with a master suite above, and basically cost has always pushed us back this way. So I think that's really the major consideration.
Cost of putting a shed there probably wouldn't be very much, so.
Or relocating the shed to this area, like a simple shed, as opposed to making it more substantial. I mean, I think there is some cost associated with it. I think they would rather keep the existing shed in place. We did show on the planting plan additional screening along the side, because I think that the only area where the shed is really has a visual impact, and this would only be in the winter, is along the south edge.
You can certainly see it now. I mean, it just sort of looms there.
Right, and it's, you know,
When you drive down Matheson, you mean?
Right.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
right. As you know, and the impact that it has is, you know, there's not a, you know, occupant here that is, you know, this is the church, it's not having a huge impact there. The impact for me has more to do with the Broadway impact. As you drive this way in the winter, you sort of see it in this area, and that was why in our second plan here, we're proposing basically an evergreen screen here, and then a large semi-evergreen, you know, buffering around. So also maybe hitting the view this way. This plan is shown at its planted size, but it would basically cover this whole side. And this one, there's an existing tree here, but the goal would be to get that kind of.
Evergreen screening isn't more expensive than a new shed?
No. I mean, the shed would be more. I mean, I think, again, it's that they would rather keep and reuse the existing. I think they have, you know, they feel like they like the shed, and there's no reason to move it if it's always been there, it's there. So,
It looks like it's in danger of falling down.
yeah.
Is there really room for evergreen screening to the south side?
There's just, I mean, basically the screening would grow through that existing fence. There's an existing chain link there, so you would have to plant it and it would cover the fence, which would be a good thing. If there was concern there, I mean, we tried to show the amount of plants and the species that we thought would work in terms of natives and stuff like that. If there's a real concern, I think we can discuss adding more.
This question of sheds is really a troublesome one for us because there are, if I say hundreds, it's probably too many, but not by much. There are an awful lot of houses in Irvington who have them, and not all of them have been documented or legalized by any means. If there's one that's, you know, been recently put in without going through the code requirements, and especially if it's quite visible to neighbors and that sort of thing, we tend not to approve that. We have not approved at least one that I can remember, which Mr. Smetis reminds me about on frequent occasions.
I think I was there.
You know, this is a little less clear to me because it has been there a while, and your proposal to screen it mitigates it somewhat in my mind. But it's really hard to get a uniform policy that would make sense in every instance, and I don't, you know, there's no neighbor nearby who's going to be affected. And the alternative is to get rid of that shed and to put another shed closer to the house. I'm not sure what the advantage is, except it would be in compliance with the code, which is not to be forgotten. Any other comments or questions from the board?
I'm unhappy with the shed too. I wish there were something that would make me feel more comfortable with it. With respect to the variance about from the front, I have no issue with that at all. I think
I don't think that's your
Fine.
problem.
I wish we had something better than just screening that we don't, the effect of which we don't really know at this point.
Anything?
I think we're not big fans of sheds.
That's certainly true.
One of our esteemed of absent colleagues is deaf on shed.
That's right.
Fortunately, he's not here.
Be here.
No, true.
So I'll just add that we recently approved a shed that was in the corner that wasn't bothering anybody, and that was was existing at the time that property was purchased, so.
Right.
I'm also not a fan of sheds, especially the ones that don't comply with our code, but we do need to be somewhat consistent in our approach.
I recall that 4-1 vote, yes.
Yeah. The only thing is that really wasn't visible from anywhere except their own house, whereas this is.
This is hard.
Yeah, this is the sticky wicket of this declaration.
This one, I think, again, what Bruce said, I would have a different position if it either had impacts on neighbors, significant impacts that could be mitigated on neighbors, or if it was more recent than this. You know, this, you could argue if it was in better condition, you could argue that it, you know, is part of the historic character of the site, right? If it wasn't, you know, falling apart. You know, if this was the position where the shed originally was, you know, that would be something that would make sense. You know, you think about even configuration of the Octagon House, where the outbuildings are pressed against the property line. It really is, and that's something to take into account, I think, when you're looking at the older properties, like the way the 1950s zoning code looks at a site, it's much more about moving everything to the center of the property and buffers between suburban lots. That wasn't the development pattern of older properties. You know, these properties, even though they were smaller, they mimicked Lyndhurst. They tried to mimic larger estate properties where the outbuildings were pushed to perimeter to make everything seem more grand, that there was more distance between your outbuildings. So it's, for me, the fact that it doesn't have impacts to residential neighbors to the south, and you know, that it is in line with the character of what the neighborhood was, and it's been there a long time. And then there's a benefit to the client of not having to pay everything.
I don't live in Matheson Park, I'm not defending Matheson Park, but when you say it doesn't affect the neighborhood, to me, once I start down that road, I feel I'm in Matheson Park. And that shed gives me sort of a bad introduction to Matheson
Right.
Park.
Right. I mean, the argument, it is in the best repair now, but, you know, it could be improved in place, and it could be, and also I think the screening would help. Also, you know, the thing is, it does have a much greater impact with the leaves off the trees. I think a lot of people don't see it when this whole area is leafed out, because there's, you know, there's underbrush in that area that sort of covers it. So that's why we proposed the client, if we want to keep it, that we would some kind of plan.
Bruce, you said this did not predate the code? I didn't have that.
I think the code goes back to the 20s. And I talked to Ed Marin about this today, and he did not think that that was the case, but he didn't have specific facts.
I think the zoning code in its current form, in terms of a lot of its setback information, I thought was stated more to, you know, post.
I don't know, that's why I'm asking the question.
Yeah.
We don't know when this, we don't have any records showing when the shed was built.
Yeah, just, I'm really basing it on the type of construction of the shed, the evidence of the greenhouse over here, and the other material, the foundation material of the shed, and it's the same brick as the house, and I think it was made out at the same time as the house.
So we did approve the addition of the greenhouse for the Octagon.
I remember that. Well, I guess we have to come out one way or the other, but this is not, for me, an easy one. Nonetheless, on the condition that you would put in all the screening that you have described, I would move that we approve this application. I'm not sure I'm going to have a second, but we'll see. Do I have a second?
I'll say.
Okay.
Well, you can say.
Let's vote from the right.
Will the audience is right, or all right?
You, Jonathan, thank you.
Will the screening be evergreen? I mean, not deciduous, so.
Yeah, so the evergreen. And native, if that matters to people.
I'm not sure what that means.
Native plants instead of.
Ginkgo trees.
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I guess
So there
I
won't be ginkgo trees? Not like no.
I guess I will vote to agree. I'm reluctant, but I'm voting yes.
Louise?
Yeah, I'm not going to,
No.
No.
Okay. Say yes.
I'll say no.
So
Mr. Evans?
I would vote differently if there was somebody here objecting, or if there was a property line, but given our precedents in the past and where this shed is, I'm gonna vote yes.
Yes. Okay. 3-2, we haven't had one of those in a long time. 3 yes, 2 no is the way, in case you were worried. But I must say, the enthusiasm with which this has just been approved is almost non-existent.
I noted.
Yeah.
Okay. Make sure you do a good job of screening. Okay, I think John said it best before, the addition and the intrusion toward the road to the north, I believe, is not a problem. I meant to include that as something we would approve. Does everybody agree with that?
Yes.
Yes. You okay with that?
already gotten outvoted.
Only ever,
What you gotta do.
said.
No, because it,
So the condition of the shed is what is driving the nose on this?
Yeah.
Is that
It's
the
an
case,
eyesore.
or is it, because
It's an
that's something I
eyesore
can talk to
and
the client about and try to correct.
Yeah, the condition would make a big difference to me, but I don't love that location. I just think it
Right.
is something that you do see. It's one thing if it's on the property line, but you don't really see it.
Right,
It's
right,
another thing when you really do see it. I
Right.
think you see it too much.
Yeah, and again, the reason that's what I was wondering, like, what is your, because
And
we
when
are in
what you
front of you
see
with
is
this on the left.
unaesthetic,
It adds
that's
to
really
it,
what it
of
comes down
course.
to.
Right, so that's
Yeah.
the other part,
Yeah.
because I want to, because we are in front of you, some of the other examples you're talking about, so I want to be able to direct clients
right.
what the board wants to.
I'm not a real estate agent, but if I were, and I wanted to sell that house, I would say that was a detraction.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say tear it down.
And, you guys understand that we are beholden to our clients.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Okay, thank you on that one. I appreciate the difficulty of that particular application, I appreciate everybody's candor. Callahan, 43 Madison Park.
You again.
Yes. So this project includes some interior, do you want to start with anything or just?
I don't think I have anything preliminary in this. I went to this one, just like the others, and as to everything but Joe Park's application on Sunday morning, everybody had something better to do than be home. So I didn't speak to anybody about it, but I did get a pretty good look at the property, and I understand where you plan to do things. Let me just give you a preliminary question. You've got a patio on the, right there, which I gather you plan to take out. And the deck there that you plan to take out. And it just struck me that that's a really logical place for the fire pit and for the small pool or the hot tub. Not necessarily in the face of the neighbors on the other side. Why was that not considered or was it considered?
This, the client has, and Sharon's here, the client has been living in the house for a while, and I think it has mostly to do with the nature of that space. It's very, very dark and very, very low, and I think in much of the year it's not getting a lot of light due to the trees and sort of the tight spaces. So they were looking, this was our question too, why don't we work with the existing, and they really, their focus wanted to be on the other side here with a little bit more room to move around and with better condition in terms of light and space around it. So I assume that, they have, we've asked them and they've considered it a lot and they really don't want to use that spot. And also, the design, the interior design, and now we've focused on the changes to the interior design, really focus all the connection between the kitchen and the outdoor eating area and stuff to this side, and it wouldn't work as well to this side the way it is now.
But there would be no impact on the neighbors.
There would be less impact on the neighbors. Again, in this case, I think I argue that there is very minimal impact, and hopefully if there's any concern from the neighbors, we can mitigate it further. This is a hot tub situation. It doesn't have the activity that's associated with the swimming pool or the visual impact that's associated
Well,
with
you've got tables and you've got, other seating areas, and you've got the equipment for the neighbors. I mean, all these are factors.
Right.
So why don't you go ahead with your presentation?
So what we're planning to do there is the driveway relocated in order to provide an outdoor space that can accommodate outdoor entertaining. If you look at the existing site plan of the house, there is there's an issue that's the result of the driveway positioning. So if you look at the house and where the potential exterior space is, it was limited to this corner, this flagstone corner. This area is the side of the house where there wasn't direct access out, and there was basement access here, so there was limited to have any outdoor space in this area. And the kitchen is already positioned in this location.
So the area that they were trying to recapture is the open, relatively flat area on this side of the driveway. They were trying to sort of trade that, move the driveway area out and bring that closer to the house so that they could have that entertainment space. Their property is quite large, the access from the house to the exterior is.
How close would the driveway be to the property line after you do what you want to do?
It's still, it's within the side yard, I think, still. Oh, no, wait, it's not, it's extending to the, it's a 20 foot from the property line. Which is, less than certain areas where the existing driveway is now. But that sort of shows the change in the driveway positioning.
But what's the distance from on the further northwest, the northeast?
This line.
That distance to the property line is,
Is less.
That's very-
That's the
that's
10
very
foot distance.
close.
That's very close. The reason we were less concerned here is that this house, is Carson's house, the house is positioned
yeah, I
all the
know.
way on that side.
I know, you almost can't see the house.
Right. That area is not really developed area. This house, that is the,
Garcia.
Yeah, the Garcia sort of branch we have is located down here, but also we were less concerned because if you look at that house, that's the service side of the house, the garage and service side is on this area. So it has, the driveway is sort of relative to their service side, it's not relative to their entertaining side. And we haven't seen concern from the neighbors on that.
Isn't there a limit on how close the driveway can be to the property line? I mean, it's not a variance you've asked for.
I don't think there's not a code limit in terms of the driveway relative to setbacks. I think it would come up if made it impossible to screen. If you had to screen something like that, it may come up. But I think there's a lot of smaller lots where the driveway would be right at property line because you're accessing a rear yard going around a house or something.
Okay, go ahead, please.
So the variances that we're looking for, the one is for, the allowable coverage variance is, we've relocated coverage that's associated here and put it over here. We've reduced the coverage slightly, but it's still over, so the coverage is still over. The coverage is over, I believe, because of the zone, a change in the zoning code from when the house was originally built. I remember when that was originally built, it wasn't that there was a variance for the coverage originally. So the relocation, has to do, it's basically how we're perceiving it as sort of as a relocation. The other variance that we're looking for is, this is the rear yard setback here. The 40-yard rear yard setback, and we're asking to locate the retaining walls are allowed in that setback by right, the retaining walls, but there's a pad that's associated with the pool equipment, the hot tub equipment, that's extending into that setback. There was a concern at the planning board about the potential impacts of the pool equipment there and whether it can be screened. The planting plan does show it screened, but there was also a question about noise. So I don't know, in this plan, we've indicated that the decibel level of the equipment will be less than 35 dB, which is like I've been told it's a library whisper. So whatever a library whisper is, that's 35 dB. So we don't think there'll be any noise impact associated with it. And it really will be seated within the planting bed, so there's not a visual impact associated with it otherwise. And then the last variance that's listed here is the pool location. So a hot tub is considered a pool as if it was a full-size pool. The way the pool location clause reads is that the pool is supposed to be behind the rear wall of the house, the rear wall that is closest to the street, whatever, there's some gray area in what it means by the rear wall that is closest to the street. In this case, the house is cranked and the rear yard is considered this area.
It's the triangle. I mean, you would have to have it in the triangle.
Right. The only thing that you could say, I don't know, if this is the rear wall of the house that's closest to the street, like this area, maybe
that's behind the rear wall of the house. I've never known how to, and we had this discussion on another project, and I think it remains kind of gray what the intent was there. But I think the intent was to make sure that it didn't affect, that it didn't end up in the front or in the side.
In the backyard, yeah.
So, this house has a strange arrangement, but, you could sort of consider this as the backyard of the house, and there really just isn't a feasible location. So those are the three things we're looking for. And there's a planting plan that we can go through that the focus is to mitigate any visual impact too. We did do visual impact analysis, but it's really, this is not that helpful. This is the analysis we do that focuses from the public way. So it's got views associated with the aqueduct. We did take one view from Parsons front walkway. So this is the view from the Parson front walkway here. And there's a little dotted yellow line that would show the pergola that is shown there. So that's the change that you would see. You wouldn't see any change associated with the hot tub because it's at grade. And there'd be additional screening that's not shown there that's at grade.
You mentioned the pergola, and it's in the application, but I don't see it located.
It's located on the site plan. The pergola is shown here.
So it's in the hot tub area?
It's behind the hot tub. So there's the-
Behind can mean a lot of things.
Yeah, so, yeah.
Sorry, behind to
This is
this.
our whole problem.
Yes. You know what, let me show you the planting plan, even though I think it'll be better, or I'll show you, there's a pergola plan too. Just another way to look at it. Okay, that's the detail of the pergola. It's sort of a simple classical pergola with a screen behind it. In the planting plan, just at the larger scale, you can see it's located here, directly outside the kitchen access. And then there's a fire pit with seating, and then the hot tub. This is tiered, so as the grade comes down, the hot tub is set lower, so the hot tub is relative to existing grade there, pretty much.
What are the 8 rectangular boxes around the pergola?
These guys? Yeah. That's table, that's the size of that's showing a table and chairs, exterior table and chairs.
I thought that was the pergola, but
Oh, I'm sorry, the pergola is the dog line.
I see,
The pergola is above the.
I see.
So that gives you a sense of the relative size, about the size of the dining table.
It offers some screening as well, the pergola.
Right. I mean, the pergola is not visible from the aqueduct. The pergola could be visible from the Parsons lot, but with the additional screening shown here, we're not, I think that's a very good impact.
Okay, let me look through some of your papers and ask you a question or two. Look at page A0.10. If you look at the, you've already told us that the deck and patio that are presently there will be removed, right?
Right.
Okay. If you look at the box on the left under zoning analysis, the rear yard is going, the rear yard setback at the moment, the requirement's 40 feet. The existing at 44 feet, which is of course fine. And your proposal is 33 feet, so you're gonna be 7 feet inside the setback, right?
Yes, I'm trying to see if that is taken from, I believe that's taken, I think that's right, I think it's
I
taken.
didn't find the number anywhere.
I'm trying to figure out, I'm not sure if it's taken from the pergola or the pad for the equipment. It's gonna be one of those two.
Okay, but that's the setback you're violating
Right,
in that spot.
right.
And then the building coverage, as you mentioned, you're gonna be 11 square feet less, but still 800 square feet over what's permitted.
Right.
And then hot tub location and size, minimum lot line distance, the requirement is 20 feet minimum. Existing none because there's no hot tub. And proposed is 44 feet, 44.39 feet, variance requested. Why?
The variance, I think, there should have been a different line for that. The variance is requested not for this this setback, is for what we were calling the co-location clause, which is, there's also a lot line setback, the 20-foot lot line setback it meets. It's the issue of whether it's behind that.
Okay, so that's not something you're asking us to deal with on that basis. Let me ask you to turn to page A 0.12. And you've got these little numerical keynotes identified on the right side. And 06 is proposed hot tub equipment.
Yes.
So that will go from the hot tub toward the neighbors, is that right?
Right, that's right.
And there's one other page I wanted you to, big question mark, where's the pergola? I guess we'll answer that one. And then SP1, which you showed us briefly before. The top of this drawing is sort of the reverse of the direction of some of the other drawings. The top is where the house is, right?
Yes, that's the house perimeter.
Okay. And that, what you call spa equipment pad, that's where the electrical equipment will be supporting the hot tub. All right. And these various plant lists at the top, these are all bushes and shrubs and things like that that you're going to have in the area.
Right.
Okay.
If you look here, there's basically a boxwood hedge that would hide the spa equipment. And then there's planting that's more ornamental planting that's facing providing lower level, flowers, it's flowering stuff facing the patio area. And then there's also these large gold spire ginkgos, which are a taller screen that has a trunk and then screening high. So there's both high screening and low screening.
Well, at least for me, the two issues are, why not the other side of the house, number one? And number two, if you're going to have it there, why should the equipment be facing the neighbors rather than next to the house?
That's something that we had looked at. This is easier for you guys to see, but it would make more sense if you could see the house. So I'm going to go to the smaller scale. So there are limitations with equipment distance for a hot tub. And so the area, the first area we looked into was to put it back behind the house here. And the equipment run is too far for the hot tub at that point. So that pushes you into somewhere around this area. The other area we looked at was this area up front here. But if we put it right next to the porch, there's a seating area right there, and also would be visible from the front yard of the house. So we were looking for an area that we could screen and limit the impact both from the front, and we do think we can screen it so that you never see it from this side. It's going to be behind a boxwood hedge, but also limit any kind of noise impact.
What is the equipment we're talking about?
It's a pump. So there are different kinds of pumps. There are pumps that are AC pumps, variable speed, and they tend to be very, very loud. Not very loud, but they tend to be louder. What's going to be specified here is a variable speed DC pump, which is less loud by a factor of 4. They really are very quiet.
It's sort of a high-end pool pump. The other piece of equipment there is a heater, which is an electric heat pump, which doesn't make noise. So it's not, this is a pump that will be 40 dB at the pump, 35 dB decibels 3 feet away from the pump, and then by the time you're off the property line, it's going to be below 20
And
or something.
it's natural gas running from the house, there's no propane or any tank like
There's
that.
no propane, no.
Is it natural gas? Is that the source?
We haven't finalized the source of the heat. It'll either be an electric heat pump version, but they tend to be more expensive to operate. There's gas in the house, so the other alternative would be gas fired. The sizes of the pumps the sizes of the heaters are approximately the same. And they don't have sound impact.
Okay.
So the two pieces of equipment are gonna be the heater and the pump.
Yeah, that's it. Well, the pump has a filter attached to it, but, in terms of the motors.
Questions or comments from the board?
The next question is, where's the front of the house? So how could that be the side, how could that be the back of the house?
Because the house kind of doesn't really have a back. This is the part that is most.
Back-like.
The back-like, yes, with the odd shaped lot. And the odd sort of crank of the house. I mean, it does, I guess if you wanted to be very strict about it, this is the back of the house, but this is actually adjacent to a side yard, where this is the whole rear yard of the house. So that was our thinking that,
Right.
Yeah, I think the back of the house is that, as I said before, that little triangle in the lower right-hand corner.
Right, and that, if you read the way that the pool location code is written, I think that's the back of the house. If you think about the pool needing to be in the rear yard, that would be the argument for this.
Right, the rear yard line is that diagonal line.
Right.
Right.
I mean, and that's one of the reasons, it is an odd lot condition. The position of the house has to do with this lot condition. The house did get positioned very far back in the lot, much farther than the required setback, which limits the impact here, to maybe to the detriment of the exterior space of the house. It doesn't have a rear yard based on its position. So the fact that the house is so far back, there is some benefit to the neighborhood on that. It gives a lot more green space right on the entry on the open side.
But it doesn't benefit the two neighbors we're concerned about here.
Right.
Wasn't this house rebuilt recently?
It's relatively new, I think it's
2002.
2003.
Yeah, it was a new house.
No. So I mean, the choice was made to put the house there, whatever advantage or disadvantage.
Right, I mean, it's not a choice that our current clients made. I'm just saying, like, if you were weighing the benefits to the client versus the impacts or benefits to the neighborhood, I'm just saying that the positioning of the house, which makes it difficult to locate a hot tub in maybe behind the rear wall of the house, had some benefit to the neighborhood. That's all I'm arguing, is that there is some benefit to the house position, like providing more open space. That's basically unused open space, unoccupied open space that's shared.
So are you're gonna pull out all of what's currently there in the back and put grass in there, is that what you're gonna do? Because my feeling when I went there was it was really like a lot of land coverage. I mean,
Coverage.
yes, right there you've got open, but around the house itself, it felt like.
Well, I think part of that is the driveway so close to the house. That's what bums me out mostly about the house, is that you feel like you're surrounded by pavement.
Right.
And that's what this is also hoping to fix.
But you're adding more pavement, aren't you?
Yeah, you
There are slightly more pavement, but it's not right up against the side of the house, and it allows this place to be, this side to be occupied.
It's up against the neighbors.
Right. But again, we don't think that there's a huge impact.
Can I explain a little bit on why we want to move it from the
Sure.
other side of the house? So that side of where the current patio is, it's right next to the school, Main Street School, which is, it's not private, and there's a certain amount of noise level that, there's a lot of activity that takes place at Main Street School.
But there is a solid fence there.
Yeah, speech, so
What-
can hear and see to a certain extent.
Yeah, there's a chain link. The property is lower by retaining wall, but it's really a chain link there.
There's
It's
a chain
partially
link.
wood and partially chain
The
link
chain
at some
link
point.
was put in, I think, by the school perhaps, and then when we built the house in 2002, the client wanted a solid wood fence, and we put that in.
And there is a solid, I can see why you want to be somewhat private, but there is a solid wood fence back there, which is what seemed to me would take care of that problem. The noise would be softened by it, but not eliminated, as far as I can tell. Okay, any other thoughts? I guess I'm willing to buy off on the fact that the hot tub can be located on that side with the proper screening and other conditions. But I just don't see a justification for the equipment being the neighbor's problem. I mean, if that's a library whisper, then it can be a library whisper in the library of the house. But I don't see why it should be on the other side of the hot tub.
Okay.
That's my personal
I
reaction.
mean,
I agree.
we can continue to look. I mean, there's also the potential of a vault that we have looked into. I mean, there's expense associated with that, but they also could come potentially below grade. You know, that's another way to limit it. If we had it below grade at that location in a vault, would that change your opinion about that?
What do you mean by that location?
Basically, in the same location that it is, but it's actually below grade in a vault. That's sometimes something to do with that.
How would that change the decibel?
It has a huge impact on noise for it to be in a vault. Basically, it's like the noise would have to be directed straight out of the vault, so it basically won't travel. Again, I think we could do analysis on it, but it would have a big impact if it was behind a solid wall as opposed to behind shrubs. Or is it just like, why there? Because there will be difficulty finding other places, but we may be able to find a place. Maybe there's a system with other equipment that would allow us to put it in the back.
I mean, it's just not credible to me with all the talent that's being applied here, that you couldn't find a way to put this near the house and not near the neighbors.
Okay.
So I think what I'm inclined to do, John, is to let you go back and think about this and decide where you want to wind up putting that equipment. And also telling us what else you're committing to do to screen this from the neighbors so they really can't see it. I know you've got commentary about some shrubbery and things like that, but it's enough of a departure for me to allow the hot tub to be on that side that I think we really need to be quite sure that the impact on the neighbors is not going to be substantial.
Okay. And is there a specific, because we have both high and low screening all through this area, is there a specific area that you're concerned about additional screenings?
I think the limitation is my own because, I read all the words, including some very fancy words about what shrubs and trees are going in there.
Right.
But I don't know enough to know what's going to be 2 feet, 4 feet, and so forth.
Okay.
So, because I think you've got to work out this equipment issue anyway,
Okay.
I just asked for a little better description of what your screening proposal would be. Maybe it's the same one you have now,
Okay.
but with a little something more to explain to people like me what that means.
What the height difference is.
Okay. We could do we could put together a rendering, maybe it's a flat kind of elevation from this line, showing you the grade, showing where the hot tub is, and then putting the height of the finished planting in so that you could see its implication. That might be what you're, just sort of a elevation description of the screen. So that's all right.
Right. Why don't you come back with that and decide what you want to do about the equipment. For myself, and nobody else has commented really, well, I guess Sarah just did. I just can't see us approving this with the equipment on that side of the house.
And is there any concern with the pergola encroachment in this location? That's just going to be hard.
I mean, how tall is it going to be?
8 feet. It's going to be planted. From my position there is that the pergola has a tendency to reduce the hardscape feeling of it because you have vines growing on the pergola. It's sort of soft.
Pergola is a nice idea, frankly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Your neighbor has a pergola.
Yeah.
Because we approved that about 6 months ago.
Oh, they have
Yeah.
they have the best pergola. You're talking about the rose arbor thing?
Yeah,
Yeah, that's great.
Okay, well, that's my suggestion.
Sounds like a good
When
plan.
you come back, is
Yeah.
anybody opposed to
It's
that?
just the pump.
Okay, let's turn this and come back to a little more specifics.
You changed that to just a regular hot tub, is there no issue? If the equipment's in the same clothes?
Yeah, is that a possibility if we could have approval for a hot tub that did not include remote equipment? That if there was a hot tub that was self-contained that would be within this area?
It's a little ambiguous. I mean, let's get the final plans out. You're still talking to the planning board anyway,
Right.
because they've asked you to come back with pictures and things of that nature, right?
Right. Yeah, we were hoping for approval at next.
At the planning board.
Yeah.
Well, come back with what you gave them in terms of the pictures. And you're taking pictures from the neighbor's property?
That's what's, yes, this is what they're seeing is the pictures that we're showing here. In terms of, I don't know if that helps indicate what's there now. But this is focused more on the planning board's visual impact analysis report, which is only views of the river that are impacted. So we added this one because there was concern about potential impact on these properties. So that's, again, what you would see from this point.
Okay. Well, why don't you add those and whatever your revised submission is, because we haven't seen that before. Okay? So we move to adjourn, so Louise can get out of here. Is that okay? You guys try it. Okay. Is that okay with everybody?
Yep.
We'll adjourn?
Yep.
We'll see you the next time.
Thank you.